Today on Locked On Red Wings, can the Red Wings get over 90.5 points?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's also the host over at Locked On Tigers and a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. Don't look now, those Tigers are only 3.5 games back, as of Monday when we record this, of the final wild card. It's getting exciting, Scotty.
You're telling me, man. Yeah, we talked about that on today's show. It's wild times, man. Yeah, we're recording this before the Twins play the Angels, and if the Angels were to win, then they would go into that Rockies game 3 games out. So.
Wild. And on top of that, it's a victory Monday for the Detroit Lions, who gave us a little bit of a heart attack, but still pulled out the win in overtime.
We'll take it. Week 1, really good team, playoff team. We'll take it.
It's the first game of the year. There's going to be some hiccups, but A win is a win is a win. And on top of that, we are now 1 week away, less than a week away from Prospects games, which is the first step towards the start of the NHL season. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the FanDuel betting props that the Red Wings have on the season, kind of getting an idea of where Vegas feels the Red Wings lie compared to like our own personal biases, because while we try to be objective, of course, our own biases kind of creep on in there because we're Red Wings fans first and foremost. But before we get to that, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket for YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Scotty, so we have a handful of props, handful of odds we want to go over in today's episode. And the first one that stands out to I think both of us is probably that over-under point total.
Yeah, this is always a fascinating conversation. I always we do this episode preseason every year, like not during the preseason, but like around now every year on this show and on Locked On Tigers too, just because I think it's, even if you are not into like sports betting at all and you have no interest in like playing these or listening to odds or whatever, it at a minimum is a really good barometer for what the general public and what the market and what Vegas thinks about your hockey team, right? And so it can give you kind of a better idea, as you put it, through a more objective lens, kind of where the Wings stand here as we head into, again, camp, kind of right around the corner, thankfully. So I think the place to start is that point total. The point total for the Wings in 2025 over at FanDuel is 90.5. So the over is minus 106 and the under is minus 120. So essentially, they think it's more likely that the Wings go under that. However, neither are plus money, right? There's some teams out there where it's like, for them to go over their point total is like, like the Sharks and whatnot is like plus money. It is still minus on both, so it's not huge like favorite underdog stuff, but they do have it as more likely for them to go under that given point total of 90.5.
Well, I want to get your feelings on that. Like, do you find that to be? Do you side with Vegas on that you think it's more likely they hit the under rather than the over?
No, but I also understand. I understand. I do think that the number of about 90 is a good one. I mean, we've talked a lot about this offseason. We've talked a lot about just the division they play in, man. Like it's a tough division. The Sens got better, right? Who knows if they're going to be able to put it together finally, but like they got better on paper. You have a lot of other teams, obviously, that are in the mix all the time there. I think I would probably I would feel okay about the over here, but honestly, like if I was to be as objective as possible, that's probably just something I would like stay away from. Like I'd probably just be
Right.
like, I don't know, that's like right on the verge, and both are minus money. I think I'm probably good on that as a whole. And I know that I'm trying to answer your question because I feel bad just being like, oh, I don't know, but that is kind of right on. I think 90 is a good number, and I think that the fact that both are minus money kind of tells you that Vegas isn't too terribly sure which one of those it's going to be either.
Yeah, I think FanDuel hit it right on the head here with this. And again, referring back to what you were saying, how we've talked about this, I think this team skill level is around the same as they were last year. They lost scoring, but then they replaced it with like Vladimir Tarasenko. You're going to get a full year of Patrick Kane. Jonathan Berggren's going to come up, so that'll replace some of the scoring. Gustafsson will replace some of it on the defense, but not all of the points you're losing with Gostisbehere walking away, but some of it. And we do think they got marginally better. But if they do have more youth in the lineup, as we know, Albert Johansson and Simon Edvinsson will be in there. We also talked maybe that they may marginally be better skill level. They could have some missteps because of added youth. So we are kind of right there with FanDuel, where I think that they could go over 90.5 points, but at the same time, it's not infeasible that they take a slight step backwards this year before they take that giant leap forwards. So I'm kind of with you with I would just stay away from it, because I think that 90.5, this is the first year I think we've said that too, because the last 2 years I hammered the over. I was right in the first year it was 82.5 or something like that, and they hit the under.
Lower. It might have been 80 or something.
No, because they hit 80 that 2 years ago, I believe 80 or 81, and that was the under.
Still under? Okay,
that was the under.
And then
last year they hit
was
over.
You're right, 84, 86, and they got way over that.
Yeah, so they got over that. This year, it's going to be right around there, I think. So probably better to stay away. I don't feel strongly either way. I think it could go either way. Anyway, Scotty, what's next?
Yeah, well, I think this kind of transitions us into division talk, and I think it's really fascinating to me how good that FanDuel is kind of prepping for the Wings division to be. Like, the Atlantic is just so talented, and I think when you look at odds to win the division, the Wings have the 6th best odds to win the division. That's obviously out of 8 teams at plus 1,400. The fascinating thing is it's the same place where they made the over under 90. So the fact that their over under is 90.5 wins, and that's 6th best odds to win the Atlantic, I think is absolutely fascinating to me.
Well, I saw a tweet from Beer League Chump today talking about that as well, where a lot of teams every single team in this division either is going to stay in the same tier that they already are in, or get better. I don't think a single team in this division got so much worse that they're just not relevant anymore. Montreal is still probably going to finish last, but they got better. Yeah. Tampa Bay Lightning, they lost Stamkos and they lost Sergachev, which are huge blows, but then they replaced that with Gensel and McDonough again, who had a great bounce back year with Nashville. Toronto is still Toronto. Florida lost some pieces because they won a Stanley Cup, but they were able to maintain their core, so they're going to be in it. I don't think, unless Jeremy Swayman proves that he can't handle the workload of a full season as the actual starter, I don't think Boston's really going anywhere. And Detroit, Ottawa, and Buffalo are all teams that are trying to go from a mid-tier team to a good team. All players with really, really, really good youth and a young core that are trying to take that leap. So if all those teams are getting better or staying a playoff caliber team, then the points are probably going to get more evenly distributed. So you might not have a super top-heavy top anymore. You might have a lot of teams floating in those 90s.
7 teams with more than 80 points.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you saw it this last year, right? The Atlantic Division is, at least this last year was 5 teams strong. 5 teams strong. And it could go to 6 or 7 this year if Buffalo and Ottawa finally figure their stuff out and Detroit keeps at it. So, as wild as it sounds, that's not crazy to me.
Which is wild that not only did the book put, obviously, the odds makers had that around that, but then, it didn't spike or dip because of the market, right? The NHL fans in the world that are on FanDuel were not like, oh, well, that's ridiculous, so we're gonna put a lot of money one place or another to make those lines move. Like, no, that's they've just been like that. Like they've stayed the same. And I think that's the most fascinating thing to me, is that it's like you said, it's weird to say out loud, but like everyone is kind of agreeing with it. They're like, yeah, dude, like the Atlantic is just crazy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just wild.
And of course, for Red Wings fans who, care greatly about this rivalry, Ottawa Senators 5th at plus 1,000 to Detroit Red Wings 6th at plus 1,400. I wonder if the Linus Ullmark acquisition really moved the needle for that one.
Big time. Yeah, they have better odds to win the Atlantic currently. So
absolutely. Scotty, let's head to a quick break. When we return, we're going to get into some player props. Do you have any more
there's a couple more team ones I want to go over, but then
cool.
we'll do player too, because there's some really fun team player conversations to have.
Absolutely. We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. You heard us talk about it, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Would you like to join me? There you are. Thanks for coming back. I was going to say, you have all the props, so...
Dude, I know I couldn't find... Sometimes it moves around. I couldn't find it in time. Dang it.
Scotty, what do you got next for us?
So I think there's a couple more just like team stuff. I want to go over. The Wings are plus 2,000, to win the Eastern Conference. That is the 9th best odds. So pretty middle of the pack in terms of, FanDuel's opinion of the, where the Wings stand in the conference as a whole. Obviously, we've talked, win total and division specifically, but in the entire East, have them a little bit, in the middle of the pack, right around that kind of exactly middle mark there. And then I think the last one Stanley Cup, they're plus 5,000. They're 19th best odds. They're behind Ottawa as well for cup odds. So there you go. 19th is just, again, like 90 points, but you're 19th. You're in the bottom half of the league in cup odds, but your over under is 90. Like, that's just so wild to me. But again, like we kind of talked about, the division probably plays a pretty big factor in that. The last one that I do think is somewhat fascinating and kind of puts a bow on this whole conversation is the Wings to just make the playoffs. No is minus 164. If you're not familiar with sports betting, that's pretty heavily juiced. Like that's not nothing. That's pretty poor value. And yes is plus 128, which is pretty pricey. So not only do they have them at, again, the over-under's at 90.5, but FanDuel seems pretty, fairly confident that the Wings are going to miss out on the postseason yet again this year.
Yeah, and I want to take a step back too and talk about the Eastern Conference thing, because it is also really fascinating when it's a nice little emphasis point for the Atlantic Division conversation too, is that 6 of the 9 teams in the top 9, capped off by the Red Wings, are Atlantic Division teams. Again, to just reemphasize that I freaking hate this division, because so many teams are looking to be good teams. The fact that after the Red Wings it goes New York, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Washington, and then Philly, 4 of the next 5 are Metro teams after the Red Wings. That is insane to me, that the Atlantic Division is so good that there's
some
6
good
teams.
Metro teams too. It's not like it's, you know what I mean? It's not like those are garbage teams either. Like, you're talking about teams that were fighting for playoff spots at the end of last season.
Yeah, I hate this division with a passion. But hey, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
With a what?
A burning passion.
Oh, I thought it sounded like you were about to drop an F-bomb there and then called an audible and switch to
No,
burning. You went
that,
burning passion.
maybe. I don't know. All right, Scotty. You got some player props for us, too, dude?
Yeah. So, well, did we talk about, I mean, playoffs? I guess it's kind of a similar
It's kinda,
conversation, but yeah.
yeah.
Just, again, they're pretty convinced that the Wings are going to miss out on the postseason, but not, not egregious either, kind of relatively close there. I think that there are some really fascinating player numbers to look at here. One is just focusing on Larkin, as we always do to start off, roster and player conversations with the Wings. He is minus 165 to score 30 goals, which is super cool. So that's, terrible value, right? That's heavy favorite. So FanDuel's pretty darn convinced that Larkin's going to be a 30 goal scorer this year. He is, as you go to point total, is where it gets kind of interesting. Plus 1,500 to score 100 points and plus 600 to score 90 points, plus 200 to score 80 points. Now, we've talked a lot. That's, I think, the biggest one, the most fascinating one to me, because plus 200 is not super likely, in the eyes of the book. And we've talked a lot about he's been about a point a game player for a while. Obviously, he's missed a lot of time not a lot of time. He's missed some time the last couple of years. But if he can stay on the ice, right, that might be the biggest question in terms of him hitting this, more so than it is his talent. It might just be like, can he play 82 games? Because if he does, I find it really hard to believe that he's not going to hit 80 points.
Right. I mean, last year he was over a point per game for the first time in his career. So the only reason he didn't hit over 82 is because he only played 68 games. Right. So he's been a point per game player each of the last 3 teams, either that or just shy of it by a point or two. So the only thing holding him back is playing a full season of hockey. So I think that plus 200 is great value for a player who's been at that pace. It's the big question again is, can he stay healthy? But you can't predict that. So if you're going into the season going, well, can this player hit 82 points? Well, the history shows you he can, as long as he's on the ice. Yeah. So I think, and I'm not gonna sit here. He doesn't have an injury that's reoccurring in the way that it a blown Achilles or anything that's
right. It's not like it's
or
the
a bad
same
knee
thing, right? That every time he gets hurt, it's the same injury, and we're like, oh, that's flaring up again. It's just he just keeps doing different stuff.
Knocked out on the ice by just pure circumstance, like crazy.
Yeah.
No, I really like that one.
Yeah, that one was really interesting to me. I also think it's interesting the difference between 30 goals and 40 goals for Larkin, right? I said for him to score 30 plus was minus 165. For him to score 40 plus was plus 1,000. That is remarkable that those two numbers are so different from each other. But they are over at FanDuel. And then we get into some other players as well. I think obviously Raymond is the big talk of the town here with the contract looming and whatnot. He has some pretty interesting numbers here too. He is a plus 115 to score 30 plus goals. That's right around, just barely not favored. That one's pretty close. So I thought that was kind of intriguing. And then he's a plus 420 to score 80 points. So not super likely there. You're getting pretty great value there. Not super likely. However, for him to be a point a game player, plus 420, the fact that he's even on that list, I think is kind of enticing. But I think the biggest one that jumped out at me was to be that close to being favored to score 30 plus goals. It seems like the market's pretty high on him this year.
Yeah, I really like the plus 30 goals. Plus 115 to score 30 plus goals.
Yeah.
He did that last year. The only thing I would caution people to, this is another good point brought up by a friend of mine, is that that top line of Raymond, Larkin, and DeBrincat, it's hard to imagine all three of them scoring 40 plus goals or something along that line. Somebody's going to get the assist on those goals and give up goals by, as well. So you might see Raymond's assist numbers jump this year, but his goals dip back down into the 20s. So that's the only thing I would caution people is not all three of those guys are going to score 40 plus goals. Although maybe you can make a reasonable argument that all three could score 30 plus goals because DeBrincat was 3 goals off of doing that himself this year. So
super feasible. Yeah.
So I really like Raymond at plus 115 for that. 80 plus points, plus 420. He had 73 points this last year. It was a huge step forward, but and I think he has the makings of a star who could be a 90-point player. I just don't know if he's going to take another huge, leap forward this year. It might be a couple years in the making.
It's super steep, It just, again, that was more so the fact that he was even on the list. I thought was kind of cool, right? The fact that he was even available to be on like the big list of players they have for 80 plus points. I thought was
even if it's a slim margin that they have him listed at, the fact that he's there is kind of like a big deal
for sure.
Awesome. Scott, we're going to take another quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up this conversation. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, what other fun little props do you have for us?
Yeah, I think we got some really interesting Patrick Kane ones, plus 500 to score 30-plus goals. That one's interesting given the pace he was at. Right, for him to get a full season if he plays a full season this year, I think that one is kind of interesting. And then plus 350 to score 70 points. So they even have that one as far more likely to occur. Still not likely, but far more likely than the 30 plus goals. I just, with the pace that he was on last year, I think it's interesting to see the value here. I think there's a lot of question marks surrounding age and health and whether he'll be able to play a full season, et cetera, et cetera. But the value is there certainly.
Well, and the thing too is you kind of have the same conversation that you have with Dylan Larkin, right? Like I could see him do both those things if he stays healthy. You just don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy to do those things. And that's the part that I think is gonna concern some people and have them shy away from those numbers. But more so than the 30 plus goals, I think the 70 plus points is very feasible. I mean, he had 47 points in 50 games, coming off of a hip injury where he didn't have a proper offseason of training. He conditioned for 2 weeks with the team and then got right back into playing top 6 minutes in the NHL and still put up 47 points in 50 games. And I do think you saw signs of him slowing down towards the end of the season as the wear and tear of the season began to get to him. But when we talked about it, I'm going to reiterate the same thing we keep saying, with a full season of off-season training to be able to train like an NHL athlete. And this is a big if, because just because the hip stayed healthy last year doesn't mean it's a guarantee it will this year. If that hip stays healthy, I don't see why he couldn't eclipse 70 points. I don't know about the goals. His goal pace was great last year, but again, that same conversation. Now he's going to be on the line with Tarasenko or DeBrincat. He's going to naturally want to feed those more natural goal scorers. Not that he won't get those opportunities himself, because he will. But I think the 70 plus points being at those juiced of odds is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. I think it has to just be an age and health question, because I'm kind of right there with you. Some interesting ones involving Vlad and Cat as well. Vlad plus 550 to score 30 plus, and Cat plus 115 to score 30 plus. I just that one, the difference between those two was wild to me. Not that I necessarily disagree with it, but I just thought it was wild that the market thinks that Cat has, what is that, over 2.5 more times more likely to score 30 plus goals than Tarasenko is. That's kind of an interesting way to look at that.
And what was the odds on DeBrincat to do that again?
Plus 115 to score 30. Vlad was plus 550.
Yeah, you know what though? I actually agree with this. And my main reasoning for that is look at opportunity and age. DeBrincat still, I know that there's a lot of frustration with Red Wings fans about the fact that he went cold for long stretches of time. I think that stuff will resolve itself. I really do think it will. Plus, he's going to more than likely be playing on the top line with with Raymond and Larkin again. And we saw that line had great chemistry last year. So he's going to have better opportunities. And not to say that Vladimir Tarasenko is not going to have opportunities. He's probably going to be playing top 6 as well. But he's also on a wing that he's more comfortable on, where Vladimir Tarasenko is going to be playing on his off wing, somewhere that he's not, used to playing. He's only played half a season of that with Ottawa. I think that it's not that out of the realm of possibility that DeBrincat scores 30, but Vladimir Tarasenko is around 25, which honestly is exactly what I would want out of an aging superstar goal scorer. Like, not every single player on this offense has to score 30 plus or 40 plus goals. Just the fact that we can have realistic conversations about each of these players being a threat for that is a really good sign for this offense.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Some other fun ones. Sider is plus 6,000 to win the Norris. That is 22nd highest odds. So, yeah, I mean, you say wow, but didn't we just say like him being the 20th best defenseman we were like fine with a couple of weeks ago? Like,
no, but his odds are what, 26th?
22nd.
22nd. Okay, I misheard you. Okay, never mind. That's not as egregious.
Odds to win the Norris, plus 6,000.
All right, that's not as egregious. I'll be honest too. Like, I don't know. Like, I think he's a Norris caliber defenseman at some point in his career, but just the fact that he's not like the flashy Cale Makar or Luke Hughes,
sure.
or not Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox, like those guys. Like, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him to win a Norris over top of those guys. Not that I'm saying that that's right. I think that I value actually being able to play your position very well. Not that those guys don't do it well, but like they're definitely more offensive-oriented D-men.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think Moritz Seider is going to have an uphill battle to get the recognition that he deserves in the league because of that. And
that's why I was pleased with where it was at. Like, I'm, around 20. Like, sure.
We know what we have. We know what we have in Moritz Seider. We don't need the NHL to, validate that. And I don't understand how, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm sorry, Scotty, but I don't understand how we live in an NHL where him being a 42-point top pair defenseman in the toughest deployments in the league is a bad thing. Like, when did getting 40 points, being a half point per game defenseman, become a bad thing? Like, honest to God, Bobby Orr ruined this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Crazy.
But like, it's wild to me that like people are looking at his 42 points and saying that it's a disappointment. I'm like, 42 points from a top pair defenseman with his deployment is insane. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, no,
and he was on power play 2, not even power play 1.
Yeah, you just have to understand. Yeah, like roll within the system is just something that some people don't grasp. That's all. Yeah. Also, my last really fun one for the Wings here, and then I have one kind of fun overall NHL one before we get out of here. Moritz Seider is plus 15,000, so not likely, but plus 15. He is on the list. Plus 15,000 to lead the NHL in time on ice this year, and I just thought that one was really fascinating. Now, like, he won't get it, and that is, but again, given the deployment and he's going to be on probably both special teams, maybe even the first unit of both special teams.
Here's hoping.
And he's going to lead your team probably at a game-to-game basis in time on ice. Like, it caught my eye, right? I'm not, again, it's not going to happen. He won't get it. He's plus 15,000 for a reason. But I did think it was kind of fascinating that he was on that list, and he wasn't last on that list either. He was kind of middle of the pack in that one.
So it won't happen if they utilize him like they utilized him last year. Like, he had the toughest deployments in the NHL, but he was only being deployed in that situation.
Right.
If they start treating him more like a number one defenseman and they cut back a little bit on that really ridiculous deployment and uptick the deployment against easier competition to unlock some of that offense to give him overall more minutes per game, that's a possibility. But like, he was averaging, I don't know the exact average. In fact, I can probably check here on Hockey Reference. I have it open. But he was averaging, it felt like 24 minutes a night, where like true number one defensemen tend to average like 27 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Let me double check on that while I'm talking so that I can correct myself. His average time on the ice this season was 22 minutes and 22 seconds. Yeah. That's good. It's over 20 minutes a night, but your true number ones, like the guys who eat the minutes, are like 25 to 26 minutes, if not 27. So
27 is like the guy who's going to lead the league this year will probably have 27. Yeah.
Like, he's legitimately only being used when like Nikita Kucherov's on the ice, right. Which is, it's like, put him out there against the third line, let him score some goals.
Yeah. For sure.
And I know you have one more up your sleeve.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have one non-Red Wings one really quickly. Andrew Kopp plus 10,000 lead the NHL in face-off percentage. So the one actual fun one I have here.
You're crazy.
At the very end, obviously not going to happen either. The one kind of fun one I have that's more NHL-centric and not Wings-centric is FanDuel is currently offering plus 1,000 odds for Ovi to score 42 goals this season and break the all-time goal scoring record. He would need 42 to break the record, and FanDuel is currently offering plus 1,000. Honestly, my takeaway from this is like, why is it only plus 1,000? Like, no disrespect. Like, he's the greatest goal scorer of my lifetime. He's probably gonna play until he breaks the record. I like I'm not trying to disrespect Ovi, but like a 42 goal season at this point in his career would be something fierce. And I honestly, and he really picked it up in the second half of last season. Obviously, ended with over 30, I think, right? But
32,
like just
31.
Yeah, with just how I think it's just a testament to how much people love him, and also how much people just like respect him, and how good he is at hockey. Like, just the fact that plus 1,000, I'm not saying that's cheap, right? Or that's really bad odds, but the fact that it's only 1,000 given where he's had in his career is pretty fascinating to me.
I actually don't think it's impossible. I'm gonna say
I don't think it's impossible either.
he scored 42 goals just 2 years ago at the age of 37 years old. And yeah, he had that entire Washington Capitals team looked like dog water for the first half of last season, Ovechkin included. And then they turned it on, and we all know how that ended for the Red Wings. But like, I don't think it's impossible with this revamped roster for them to, come out of the gate hot and Ovi lead the charge. I mean, he's kind of ageless in that way. Same with Sidney Crosby. They've both been kind of ageless. And I made the mistake of counting Ovechkin out like 5 years ago. I was like, he's 34, he's 35, he's going to start slowing down. He's not going to break the record.
Have you seen the LeBron tweet? It's like, LeBron's 30. Thank goodness we don't got to put up for this too much longer. That was like 10 years ago. Yeah. It's like the same thing with Ovi. It's like, oh, well, this guy's got to cool down soon, and he just hasn't.
I mean, he's going to come on to spring training in the best shape of his life, Scotty.
Best shape of his life, baby. Yeah, no, it was just, again, all the respect in the world to Ovi, man. The fact that that's plus 1,000 and not way higher given where he's had in his career is
I'm surprised it's not lower. I'm be honest, I'm surprised it's not
really
lower.
I'm surprised. I just, again, it's a testament to how good he is. Like, the general public is like, oh, if that was higher odds, we'd be all over. Like, everybody would take it, right? The fact that it's lowered down to the number it's at is just, all of the NHL is like what you're saying. They're like, he could pretty easily do this, to be honest. Like, it's Ovechkin. Like, he could do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, with Alexander Ovechkin, that he's got that it factor to him, and the it factor doesn't go away. Like, the dude stands in one spot, and just you can't defend him. How do you not defend a guy who you know where he's going to be and what he's going to do? How do you not? But he scores goals. They never figured Alexander Ovechkin out, and I don't know if they ever will. He's going to kind of be like Nicholas Lidstrom. He's going to hit like 42, be at the top of his game still, and be like, all right, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah. Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah, right. I mean, at least Jagr slowed down, right? Like, it was hard for him to get.
Slowed down at like 48.
Well, yeah, right.
Jagr was still a dang good player at 42 and 44. Yeah.
So, I mean, with Alex Ovechkin, dude, I find a really hard time to say. I do think it's more. I do agree that it should be plus odds, because I think it's more likely than not he's a little bit short, and it takes 2 seasons to do it. But I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible.
Again, same boat as you. I am not going to be the person to doubt Alexander Ovechkin.
Right.
Not going to be me.
All right, Scotty. I think are done.
Yep.
Unless you have anything else. All right.
No, that's it. We ball.
It was a fun episode. 2 more episodes until we're back to 5 days a week, and we have some training camp and some prospect games to talk about. Getting real close, getting real exciting. Scotty, any final thoughts?
I don't think so, man. I already said it.
Oh, did you? I wasn't listening. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
What the heck was that?
I'm putting a flair on it. A little bit of fun.
Every day.